A lot of people are confused about exactly what we know and what we don't know about global warming. This is hardly surprising as it has become a target of propaganda and conspiracy theories due to the magnitude of its consequences and the effort required to avoid these consequences. Naturally, it has become a political topic. However, despite attempts to politicize it, global warming is fundamentally a nonpartisan issue. This video will lay out the facts about global warming, explain what we know, what degree we know it, and what the big debate is all about. So what is the difference between climate change and global warming? Climate change is a general term for the change in Earth's, climate, while global warming specifically refers to the Earth's rising temperature due to human activity. Climate change can be natural or artificial, while global warming is purely human-driven. In fact, the Earth is naturally in a warm period of an ice age. This warm period began about 12,000 years ago and made farming possible, allowing human civilization to take root. This ice age recession is overdue and is on the verge of ending within the next few thousand years, bringing us back into the full wrath of the Pleistocene glaciation. So the Earth should naturally be getting colder, but this isn't what's actually happening. In short, the fact of the situation is that Earth is warming up because of excess greenhouse gas emission, especially from CO2 released by humans burning fossil fuels. The effects of a warmer climate are increased frequency of natural disasters like hurricanes, drought, flooding, snowstorms, etc. Other consequences include a rising sea level, less fresh water sources, overpopulation, disease outbreaks, crop failure, and even thriving invasive species, such as the spruce bark beetle, which has destroyed 4 million acres of spruce trees in Alaska. The entire fragile ecosystem of Earth will be disrupted, causing changes in a wide variety of areas. To summarize the debate, we know that humans are the primary contributors to global warming, but we do not know the exact amount. The Earth is predicted to rise somewhere between 2 and 7 degrees Celsius by the end of the century. The exact value for the rise in temperature is the crux of the debate. Nobody who understands the topic argues whether or not humans are the cause. The fact that Earth has been rapidly heating up since the Industrial Revolution, when we began burning massive amounts of fossil fuel, is another good indicator that humans are the cause, especially when the Earth is overdue in transitioning back to a full-blown ice age. The global warming effects of atmospheric greenhouse gases have been known for over a century, and historical temperature data correlate strongly with the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere. Furthermore, the total amount of greenhouse gases we release on Earth accounts perfectly for the amount we see building up in the atmosphere. Even with powerful computer simulations, predicting the exact percent change for each individual effect is difficult. We know what the effects are, just not exactly when they will happen. This is the global warming debate. In order to understand the global warming debate, it helps to know the mechanism behind how it works. Global warming is caused by gases like CO2, methane, and water vapor building up in the atmosphere, trapping in heat from the sun. This is called the greenhouse effect. An increase in temperature of only a few degrees can drastically increase the consequences mentioned previously. The primary greenhouse gas involved with global warming is CO2, which has seen a rise in atmospheric concentration due to excessive fossil fuel burning. Other greenhouse gases, like water vapor, are more plentiful in the atmosphere than CO2, but their amount has remained mostly unchanged. CO2 is the most worrisome because it is being pumped into the atmosphere at an unprecedented rate. Deforestation is another reason why the CO2 rate is increasing. Trees take CO2 and transform it into breathable oxygen, meaning fewer trees leads to more CO2. This vicious cycle is causing CO2 to trap in more and more heat, converting our planet into an Earth-sized oven. The idea that atmospheric gases like CO2 could heat the Earth, bringing about climate change, was first proven in an experiment by John Tyndall in 1859. This was the first demonstrated proof of the greenhouse effect, although he failed to correctly explain how it works. Also, it had already been known since 1824 by Joseph Fourier that the Earth's atmosphere was responsible for keeping the planet warm. The first mathematical calculation of temperature increase caused by adding gases into the atmosphere was done by Arrhenius in the 1890s. He was also the first to suggest that humans could someday warm the Earth by burning fossil fuels, although he and other experts believed that the balance of nature would prevent this. Evidence wasn't convincing to climate experts until the 1950s, when extensive studies were done to quantify the issue and predict a timeline of the rate of temperature increase, along with its consequences. This research was made possible by military funding into radar and infrared radiation. Although experts have known about the consequences of global warming for decades, public understanding has yet to catch up, even as computer models continue to reinforce the theory and zero in on a precise timeline. As you can see here, the most recent models estimate the Earth's temperature to rise by 2 to 5 degrees Celsius by the year 2100. As anyone who has performed an experiment knows, a pretty good indication that an explanation is on the right track is when the prediction matches the observed result. It also indicates that the major effects are mostly accounted for. Global warming is a great example of this type of successful experiment. The results of global warming studies are quantified in a graph as a predictable trend, which allows us to verify how it holds up over time. And sure enough, the actual measurements have shown to meet this trend. Furthermore, when the effects caused by the release of greenhouse gases from factories and other human-made products are removed from the theory, the trend not only fails to match reality, but it reverses. We can actually see the long-term effects of excess atmospheric CO2 firsthand, thanks to a planet on our own solar system, Venus. It was likely once a planet similar to Earth except with substantially more volcanoes. A steady barrage of eruptions over a long period of time caused Venus to become the blistering pressure cooker planet that it is today. And since a CO2-soaked atmosphere is stable, it can never get back to its original form without artificially scrubbing the CO2 from the atmosphere, molecule by molecule. Unfortunately, no humans are there to correct the runaway greenhouse effect. Earth does not have the vast amount of volcanoes of Venus, but thanks to humans, we do have a similar greenhouse gas emission. We probably don't want to end up like Venus, however. Thanks to the success of the global warming theory, it should come as no surprise that climate scientists agree that humans are the cause of global warming. The IPCC, or Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, concluded that human influence on the climate system is clear, and recent anthropogenic emissions of greenhouse gases are the highest in history. Recent climate changes have had widespread impacts on human and natural systems. You can read their 2014 assessment report in full here. Lies and propaganda about global warming are everywhere, thanks to politicians and large industries who benefit by leading people astray. Since global warming is dangerous and requires a degree of work to counter, denial is a natural human response, and so people become easier to manipulate. Politicians use global warming to gain support by echoing the beliefs of their voter base, and also to fulfill promises to CEOs and industries using fossil fuels, often in turn for campaign donations. In fact, our current head of the EPA, Scott Pruitt, is one such politician. He is either too unqualified to grasp the essentials of his job, or he is purposely deceiving the public for political gain. Either way, his stance on global warming is severely and frighteningly incorrect. Large companies and corporations benefit by making a lot of money. Global warming hinges on the use of fossil fuel, so any effective plan to counter this would require a reduction in fossil fuel usage. This obviously hurts the revenue of businesses using coal, gas, and oil. Nearly all factories produce CO2, so heavy resistance should be expected. Politicians who stand to lose support and corporations who stand to lose money are the main forces against public knowledge of global warming. Given the choice, a business will nearly always choose an increased profit margin over improving the quality of people's lives. Never underestimate the power of money on public mindset, especially when numerous well-established and powerful industries are threatened and come together for a common goal. One example of a corporation's power over public knowledge is the tobacco industry's campaign claiming that cigarettes are harmless. How long did it take for people to realize that cigarettes could actually cause cancer? It took a long time because the tobacco industry spent loads of money on persuading people that cigarettes are harmless. And that was just because of a dispute with the tobacco industry over being asked to put a warning label on their product. Global warming involves many more industries, a lot more money, and much higher stakes. It should be no surprise that people continue to fall for their carefully crafted lies. It is also difficult to see because global warming is a gradual trend not immediately obvious to people. For most, millions of deaths over years is not as disturbing as a million deaths in a single event. Even when a natural disaster caused by global warming kills a million people in an event, people still shrug it off as unpreventable and refuse to accept the blame. A higher rate of natural disasters can be blamed on many things, so very few people have the courage to blame themselves when other convenient excuses are available. Finally, many see global warming as an event being centuries away. However, in truth, the effects are happening now. Greenland and Antarctica are losing astonishing amounts of ice yearly. We are seeing a rise in natural disasters, and people are literally dying today because of it. The consequences escalate just slowly enough to allow human biases to ignore it, but fast enough that real lives are being taken away today. So if you didn't know the whole situation, don't feel ashamed. It's tough to find out who's right when billions of dollars are being spent to confuse you for someone else's personal gain. When you're unsure of something, consider the arguments and motivations of both sides. If it's a field you don't specialize in or you're not extremely familiar with, find peer-reviewed papers by experts and read the counter papers if possible. If there's a nearly unanimous consensus, there's probably a good reason for that. On my next video, I plan to cross-examine the top arguments you're likely to hear from climate deniers, and also discuss possible global warming solutions. This situation may seem dire, but life on Earth has been through much worse, so there's certainly no need to be alarmed. With a little motivation and selflessness, we can solve this problem. We just have to be a better person than this guy. Simple. Thanks for watching, and have a mindful day.